Hey, welcome everyone who's slowly coming on in. We'll just give it a couple minutes just so everyone can get connected. Welcome, welcome. Okay, perfect. All right, we've got participants just coming in like there's no tomorrow, so we're just going to get going. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us over your lunch hour today for our webinar in sponsorship with EDR and the NSBA. My name is Jamie Polsom, and I am the operations support for WES. And I'd like to give a huge shout out to today's webinar sponsor, W Law. So our topic today is improving the psychological safety within our teams and organizations, and it's presented by Chrissy Engel from Wild Ember Coaching and Consulting. If you have any questions as she goes through the presentation, just please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, not the regular chat box. But please do use the chat box to introduce yourselves and tell you a little bit about your business, or tell us a little bit about your business. As always, this webinar is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing, and you'll receive an email tomorrow around this time to let you know. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Chrissy, and I'll be in the background if anyone needs me.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Hello, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. I wanted to show you, I'm sure we're all really tired of talking about the weather, but I just wanted to show a positive of this wonderful snowstorm, and that would be my children deciding to embrace their inner wildcat. Don't know if you can tell, but they're wearing a tiger and lion outfit, leaping on the trampoline. So I hope you all are trying to find that inner moment of joy with this beautiful snow, despite the fact that it is making those roads difficult. My name is Chrissy Engel, and I do coaching and consulting. One of the things that I really am interested in is psychological safety and how it affects our work culture. I find that work culture is such a tangled web of so many things, but that psychological safety is a part that I'm quite interested in, and obviously you guys are as well. And so I really appreciate you coming and spending your precious time in your lunch hour. So I hope you have your sandwiches ready and your cup of tea or coffee, and we will work on this. So work culture, psychological safety, as I said, they're very intertwined. And so I wanted to acknowledge that we can't fix what we don't understand. And sometimes we don't have words and names for things of the parts that aren't working or are working in our work culture. And so at first, we're going to go through some of those terms. So we all know of someone who has worked somewhere, felt devalued, belittled, unappreciated, disrespected. We also know of people, hopefully this is us, that have worked in these amazing places where we feel supported and valued and lifted, and that things that we do and say are contributing and appreciated and noticed. And so today we're just going to kind of tease that tangled web out, make sure that we get a chance to kind of name those different threads so that we can work on those threads is the direction that I go with this. So like I said, we can't deal with things if we don't have names for all those feelings and those different interactions. So the question always is, can't we just skip ahead? We're in the middle of a dumpster fire. Can't we just get some tools and fix this? And that's where I really do feel strongly that knowing and sharing this understanding of these words and these names of psychological safety, trust, work culture, work environment, that they're so intertwined and entangled that the dumpster fire tools don't work if we don't have the names for where we're trying to be. Okay. So with that, I wanted to just check in and see, what are your hopes from this webinar? How are we measuring this webinar as being successful? And if you could put that into the chat, that would be great. Just wanted to see what all. See if I'm missing anything. Thank you. That's so valued, right? So much of this we've heard before, bits and pieces here and there. We want to find out. Sometimes it matters to hear it again, right? We sometimes have to hear things repeatedly to, oh yes, now it's clicking, now I understand. But also to make sure, are we missing something? Was there a little nugget in there that made that next part of what I'm implementing at work fit in smoother? Thank you for that. Is anybody else talking about what kind of struggles they're having in regards to this? Okay. Thank you. Sorry, just I'm pressing all the wrong buttons and it's my fault completely. Including that, goodness. All right. So who are you? I'd really love to hear who you are, what your roles are in your business. Are you the HR? Are you the founder, the owner, employee? What's happening for you? And while you think about that, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing that, that's okay as well. So I wanted to also ask, when you hear the phrase work culture, what word would you share that it means to you? How would you explain it to somebody who has never heard that term before? How we do things around here. Thank you. Yes. Hey, so yeah, how we do things, how our shared values, how we're making decisions, how we ask questions, how we're interacting with each other in those mundane little things. Do we say good morning? Do we say good night? Or do we just get to our desk and get to our work? It's a tangled ball of factors. I totally want to acknowledge that. Racism, inclusion, diversity, these are all things that affect our work culture. It's not, sometimes I am concerned that people hear the word work culture and right away go into the direction about what food we eat or the religion that we practice. And that's more of a society culture. So I just really want to make sure that we've acknowledged that, but that yes, those things do have an effect on us, right? It affects how we behave and the times and the breaks that we have and such. So I really want to make sure that the strong and weak culture is not confused with healthy and unhealthy. So an example of a strong culture would be karoshi, which I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, so I'm really sorry. It's a Japanese term and it's death from overwork. So work is the first priority, no matter what the cost. And that results in death, unfortunately, for some. And so that's a very strong culture. Doesn't mean that it's a healthy one. A weak culture, there's elephants in the room. There's some people who are the exception to the rule. Not everybody is doing the same. There's some stated rules, some exceptions to them, some lack of consequences, lack of accountability. And it's often a reflection of a lack of leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm not referring just to executive level leadership. We all have an opportunity to be a leader, whether we are the lead or not. Okay. And so with that, I wanted to touch base. Does your organization have stated values? And if you could pop that into the Q&A or the chat, that would be absolutely great. So a healthy work culture, again, not to be confused with a strong or a weak culture, as a healthy work culture is inclusive. There's equity. It's respectful. It's civil. You can be honest with yourself and with your coworkers. And that doesn't mean hurtful words, oh, I was just being honest. It means that you can own your mistakes as well as your successes. And so I just wanted to touch base with that. And also to ask, is there anything missing from this list that you feel? I'll give everyone a chance before. Sorry, I've been flipping through the screens a little too quick, I think. My apologies. Somebody had mentioned in regards to that question of what is work culture, and someone spoke about the unspoken rules, and I appreciate that. It isn't always something so that you can put your finger on, right? How it feels in your gut to work where you do. Again, right? It's not necessarily something you can put your finger on. Somebody added a word in here for our list, empathy, and I really appreciate that. I agree, empathy should be on this list. That ability to look and what is it like for that person on the besides me, other side of the table, what have you, to be in their shoes, to hear what they're hearing, as well as for them to be experiencing what's happening here. And having that ability to have that empathy for that person really helps in honoring them as well as that healthy work culture. Why does a healthy work culture? I think I just missed the last word. I'm so sorry. Why does a healthy work culture matter? Everyone has different personalities of how it's showing for them. And so, and different things that are of concern. So that's why it's important to ask, truly, why does it matter to you to have a healthy work culture? And if we can be honest, and even if you can't put that in the chat, but if you can take a moment to reflect on that for yourself, why does it matter to me? Does it mean I won't? I'll stop telling the answers. I'm so sorry. So, some financial costs of an unhealthy work culture. And if you would like to put some into that chat, that would be great. Some potential costs, financial costs, difficulty with attrition. So hiring new people, they've heard it's not a great work culture. Don't go there. They're always losing people. Retention, hard to keep hires. You work so hard to get that new hire, that perfect hire, and now they don't want to stay. Disengaged, right? People are disengaging. So 20% or more reduction in productivity due to a toxic work culture. That's a lot, right? We start doing the math in a year. If we have 3 employees that are doing 20% or more less of their productivity because of that work culture, we can start translating that into financial losses very easily. There's the cost of the health benefits of missed work. So time off. What happens when we have people taking time off? Now we have short staffage. Now we're paying overtime. Now we are running behind on deadlines, work, the actual work, what we're trying to do here. Therefore, maybe some reputation costs, maybe some missed learning from past experiences. We can't talk about what went wrong last time. Are we going to learn and not do that same mistake this time, which makes it a costly mistake. Probably was costly the first time, but now it really times two. What about the cost of the unhealthy work culture to that employee? There's some costs in that as well. There's their healthcare costs, right? Even if you have a health plan, it's most likely not paying 100%. The lost wages on missed work. And so I say that also for the people who are the owner, who aren't necessarily always pulling as much of a wage as if they were an employee. The sick days, the toll that it's taking on our personal relationships, the mental health costs. There's a lot at stake when we think about that in regards to a healthy work culture or lack of it. Stanford had done a meta-analysis on medical impact on physical health when you're working in an unhealthy, toxic work environment. You are 35 to 55% more likely to be diagnosed with a major disease such as cardiac disease or diabetes. 55% is a lot, right? Like you start looking around the room at your coworkers and you start thinking about that. That's not such a nice way to be impacted. So work is also impacting other people. So we've been places where the employees are interacting very politely, but you could feel the tension. You could see the undercurrents between the, could you please do this? Right? We see that and we feel it, right? We come out of those interactions feeling a little tense, a little bit disconcerted. What's going on? Not what we want our clients to be feeling, the contractors to be feeling, the suppliers. They pick up on those things. It's important for us to acknowledge that. Psychological safety is a part of this work culture. So I wanted us to be clear about the difference between psychological safety and trust. And we'll get to trust in a moment, I promise. So when there's psychological safety, you can speak, you feel heard, and you aren't scared of, oh, if I say that, I'm going to be punished in some way for this. So when you have a debriefing, something's gone wrong, or just a big event has happened, big situation, or a little one, you want to learn from it. So you have a debriefing. If there isn't psychological safety, what's happening in that debriefing? Are we really learning? Are people owning their role in the situation? I didn't have this ready, so this went wrong. I didn't realize about this. This happened. I had this ready, so we were good for this scenario. These are important things of that debriefing, so we all can learn from each other. And if we don't have that psychological safety in that moment, it's not happening, not to the degree it could. So my question would be for you as participants of this webinar, what are some things that you are doing to create psychological safety within your teams and organizations? And if you could put that in the chat, we'll call this a debriefing. So psychological safety and trust are very similar, but a little bit different. Psychological safety is about the team. Trust is between individuals. And so I had asked what you were doing in regards to psychological safety for your team. And so I'd also like to ask, what are you doing to earn your trust, your coworkers' trust in you? In the end, we can't control what other people are doing to some degree, but we can, it starts with us. And so that's where I really want us to do some self-reflecting. What are we doing for this? So somebody mentioned being explicit that it's okay to fail, being reliable and honest. Thank you. And then this was an answer in regards to I believe this was about the why we want this. We want our work culture to be good for people. We spend a lot of time at work. Yes, thank you. And we do waste a lot of energy on navigating difficult dynamics. And that's the truth of the matter, right? If we could take half of the energy that we're spending and time navigating these difficult dynamics and situations and communications and could put it on the actual work, my goodness, we could take over the world. So trust versus psychological safety. And I just wanted to use this as a nice little graph because I do find that it's quite helpful. Psychological safety is between the whole group. Trust is between two people. If you don't believe that you're going to be treated benevolently, be it psychological safety or trust, you are going to have guarded relationships, toxic politics. That's not where we want to be. When we have to protect ourselves from each other, the others, cannot speak today. I'm so sorry, you guys. The whole organization suffers. And that was a lovely quote from Simon Sinek, who I do find quite delightful, his nuggets of wisdom. The point of talking about psychological safety is that if we can't ask a question, if we can't tell what went wrong, we can't learn, we can't pivot, we can't recover as quickly from these mistakes, failures, whatever we want to call it, as quickly. And that's costly for our business. So everyone comes to this at a different place, right? It isn't a linear thing. We don't start at inclusion safety, learner safety. Some of us pop around and we're at challenger safety before we feel inclusion safety, depending on our personalities, but wanted to talk about how this looks, this psychological safety. So for inclusion safety, these members feel safe and belong. They feel like they belong. Learner safety, they're able to ask and learn from asking questions. If you feel silly and, oh, I better not ask, I'll just go and try to figure it out on my own. I'll Google search it or ask my friend tonight or what have you. That's not psychological safety in that space with that team, with that organization. Contributor safety. It's when they feel safe to bring their ideas. Hey, I was noticing we're spending a lot of money on long distance calls. What if we start Zooming? Blah, blah, blah. Right? There's things we can learn from each other, and we all are in different ages and experiences. And if that's the beauty of these multiple people, being able to bring these things. Challenger safety. That's when the members can question each other's ideas and suggest changes. I realize that's always how we've done it, but I'm wondering, what if we were to try this? Maybe we can't do the new idea, but maybe we can do a part of it. Maybe it can sit like a little nugget on the side and we can bring it up later when we have more pieces to make it work. These are all important parts of that psychological safety. So the question, how are we going to increase this level or decrease this? Sorry, we want to increase the level of psychological safety, but we need to understand how we're breaking it down so we can start doing the opposite, right? The wrong person in the room. And that's a hard one to navigate, right? Especially if you're the owner. So how do we start building and practicing that psychological safety in your team? We need to acknowledge our own fallibility, admit when we've made a mistake or that we don't know the answer. Ask a question, ask another question. Maybe ask 3 or more. Encourage others to ask questions. We want to, Michael Bungay Steiner, he has these lovely books about why. And people come and ask us a question. His suggestion is to ask why 3 times, because each time we get down another layer and another layer and another layer. Asking ourselves and even others, if we're feeling comfortable, they're feeling comfortable, what is the story I'm telling myself about this, right? It's often we come in and we say, oh, they just hate me so much and my ideas and they never listen and da da da. Okay, that's the story we're telling ourselves. What do we really believe that? Sometimes the act of saying it out loud, we start to realize that's a ridiculous story. They don't hate everything that I say. Last week, they really liked my ideas. It's this one idea. And like somebody had said in the chat, empathy. What's it like to be in their shoes? And taking a moment and looking around the room and how we're presenting this meeting and this questions and the debriefings and the brainstorming. What's it like in their shoes? Do they all feel comfortable? Or is there one person who's monopolizing it all and not giving somebody who maybe has lower seniority or the power dynamics are a bit different? What's it like to be in their shoes, and how can we elevate them? How can we lift it? The post-it, that's a lovely one from Brene Brown. So you're asking a question in a meeting and one person says an answer, and then before you know it, everyone says, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We should do that. Sometimes we kind of get a bit of an echo or a lack of echo. Let's put our answer on a post-it, and in 1, 2, 3, we're going to flip it. And then we all get to see what all the different answers are. Maybe they are truly all still the same answer, but maybe somebody was the outlier. Let's talk about that, because they maybe have a really good point of a different answer, a different perspective. It's going to take us 3 weeks, not 3 days, to finish this project, because this person works in IT and they're aware of what other projects are going to influence and impact the rollout of that plan. Asking those questions of what could go right with this plan and what could go wrong. And just start eliciting people's thinking, their ability to say it out loud. Does anybody have any other things that they've been doing to help with that psychological safety in their team that they would like to share with us today? So there's we need to trust each other as individuals, and then we can trust the entire group. So I'm going to talk a little bit, but I want to be reflective of our time, about some trust things that we can do. So imagine you're getting feedback on a decision or an action you made, and maybe it had negative repercussions. How are we responding? What does it look like when there is trust? Which way is open and allowing some learning, and which is just putting up a wall? I'm scared. I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to feel these uncomfortable feelings of shame or guilt or what have you. I'm going to go straight into defensiveness. Imagine that you're asking somebody on your team to do something that you have identified as a priority. What does it look like when there's trust? Are they open to hearing your point of view? Or are they going straight to, nope, not going to happen? Or maybe they want to talk to you about it. I understand that this is a priority, but I also have these things on my plate. Which is a higher priority? Let's talk about this. There's many different ways that our behavior and our coworkers' behavior is adding to this unhealthy work culture. It's one thing to say, stop doing blah, 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 stop having the venting sessions, but we need to also understand, why are we doing that behavior? There's reasons for it, right? We all know what it's like to be around mood polluters. We also understand what it feels like and how our work is affected. And it's not healthy, it's not productive. Why is somebody wanting to be the hero? Do they not feel autonomy? Do they not feel appreciated? So if you're being secretive and you see it as a way to give yourself value, I want to be the hero. I want to be the guardian of all the knowledge and the answers to save the day. Why is that? How are you going to grow? How are they going to grow? Especially if nobody even knows what it is you're doing or how you do it. Is anybody experiencing any of these at their work? And I understand if you can't put it in the chat. So if we're griping after the meeting and it's about someone, or it's because something, is it because we don't trust them or the group to hear us? So to me, these are symptoms of a lack of psychological safety, a lack of trust. And yeah, these things can decrease the psychological safety, but they also are a symptom of it. So my point would be, it's one thing to say, no more venting, no more meeting after the meeting. Well, let's dig a little deeper and find out, why are we having that meeting after the meeting? Are we not seeing anybody say, hold on, we need to circle back to this. I'm feeling defensive. I need to digest this. I have more that I'd like to add, but I need to digest this. If we're not seeing people do that, we don't understand. We don't know how to practice it. So if we can start that, then we can stop having these meetings after the meetings. And these are just more symptoms of there's something going on. I just wanted to acknowledge that it all starts with someone, right? We can't control always, unless we're in management, how other people are behaving. But if we can start modeling the opposite of this behavior, that would be fantastic. So this is a part of that tangled web, right? So we want great communication because it's building on each of these factors of growth opportunities, trust and respect, psychological safety, reliable leadership. It's all interconnected, okay? And that communication is formal and informal. It's continuous. It's that feedback back and forth. We aren't operating in a vacuum. And we need to understand that a learning problem is what's happening, not necessarily an execution problem. Okay? Everything's an experiment. So what are some words that describe your organization's work culture? If you would be so kind to share it. And part of that is exactly like this screen says. To change it, we need to understand what the current culture is. And if we can't name it, how are we going to change it? We want to be able to look at what the opposite would look like if it's not where we want it to be, and so on. How do we get from here to there? We want to clarify our expectations before we are accountable. So what does it look like in daily interactions? And be super specific, because all of a sudden we can narrow it down to, you know, I'd really like it if they said good morning. And it sounds like a small thing and a little thing, but man, does it ever make a difference? it sets the tone for your day, right? And if we can work our way down to those root of the roots, there's branches, streams off from that, but we need to talk about it. Is it about how we ask our questions of each other? Is it the tone we use, the situation? When I am doing this work, you ask me questions, I'm not present and I'm not focused. And so I'm coming across as uncivil or terse, and I don't want to be. I'd really like to hear your questions. Would you be able to come at this time of day to ask me those questions? Or what can I do to make sure that I'm giving space to you? Right? If we aren't talking about those root symptoms of how it's showing up, the things we like and the things we don't like, we can't dig in very well. Does anybody want to share some expectations that they're having? And so to change that culture, we want to change the behavior, right? We want to walk the talk. So do we want to have a physical reminder to hand somebody when they're client bashing or venting or having a meeting after the meeting? How are we holding each other accountable to these practices that we have agreed to? And I do want to say that I think just barging in and being like, that's it, we're changing our work culture. It can be a little bit much. It can be a little bit strong. We want to not shame people. We don't want to put them into defensiveness. Pick a little thing and work from there. We want to name it. And we want to understand what that behavior is coming from, right? Is it incivility? Is it from a hierarchy perspective? From a scarcity mindset? From stress? What's happening? Is there something that we did or said that's created a story for them? The story that they are telling themselves. And it's awkward and it's painful and it feels so gross to be holding someone accountable for some of these things, right? But it's also feeling so gross and awkward and awful every time we leave work not happy. So that 10 minutes, 5 seconds, I doubt it's going to be 10 minutes of uncomfortableness. I really, really do. It's usually only 4.5 seconds. Let's talk about it and hold ourselves accountable, right? Does anybody want to share anything in there? Anything that's coming up for them that they're definitely noticing from their work culture that they really want to work on? If you could pick one little one, what would it be? And remember that this is about our own behavior, right? We aren't in control of other people's behavior unless we're management. So what is that one behavior that you want to work on for yourself? Mood polluter, wanting to be the hero, venting, meeting after the meeting, client bashing, that's not my job, what's the point? Those symptom behaviors. And my list isn't exhaustive by all means. So there isn't going to be one webinar or even 20 webinars that are going to fix a certain work culture, right? There isn't a quick fix on any of this. It's hard work. It takes commitment, especially from the top level. It takes accountability and walking that talk and that self-reflection and the self-awareness and creating those habits that change the behaviors. And looking back, same as what we talked about for psychological safety, learning from those past failures, learning experiences, what got in the way in the past when we tried to change this behavior, say the venting. What got in the way? It's a habit of so-and-so and so-and-so to get together to talk about this person. Okay. How are we going to do that? How are we going to change that? Is it both of them talking about this is what we really like, acknowledging this is what we really want to work on? What do we do to remove those barriers that got in the way of it succeeding? It's going to take work addressing our perceptions, our biases. There's going to be lots of learning moments, maybe one-on-one coaching, maybe team coaching. But after we make that commitment to change, we also need to sustain the change process. And it is tiring, and it's at first it's so full of passion, and we're all so like, that's it, I'm gonna fix this. We can do this. But then it gets really hard. So how are we going to keep that fire burning? How are we going to sustain that change in the face of that adversity, right? We're making good momentum, and then so-and-so comes in and it all just falls apart. How are we going to overcome that? And I do strongly feel that that comes from discussing the significance of the work. What will success in having a healthy work culture and high psychological safety and trust within our organization, what is it going to give us? What is the financial dollars that it's going to give us? What is it going to give us for ourselves, our coworkers, our employees? And acknowledging that and really hammering out what that looks like is what's going to sustain you when you're having those moments of like, oh, this is so hard. So what is the significance of it? We work to get things done. And what's affecting us from getting these things done? Communication, engagement. How can we communicate and be engaged if we don't have psychological safety and trust and civility? How is this current work culture impacting the people who work here, the clients, the suppliers who are interacting with us? They have to pick from two places. One's with a great work culture, which we know clients are picking up on, and one isn't, and everything else is the same. Where do we think they're gonna go? So I'm not saying to march into work and start calling people on their behavior. I just want to be really, really, really clear. Please don't do that. And that would be horrible, right? To be on the other side of that. We don't want to create distance. We don't want to create shame and disconnection. We want to have some conversations. Hey, I went to this. Hopefully you'll say it's a great webinar. I want to have a conversation. I want to figure out, like, how is that affecting you? Are you also bothered by that? Gather some allies at work with a team. Hire a team coach. Take it step by step. Talk about it. Don't make it be that elephant in the room, the lack of empathy. Sometimes in those conversations, we find out how much other people are thinking about this and what they would like, and how they would like to implement it, and how they want to be accountable to each other. So what are we afraid will change? Because that's also an important part of this, right? Sometimes people are concerned, if I open up this can of worms, is it going to make things worse? Well, we're talking. We're trying to connect. We're trying to understand. What are we afraid will change? We want to create some space and some accountability to practice those behaviors, the behaviors that we want. We want to work on decreasing those barriers from having those behaviors repeat. So I would ask, what's next? What's next for you in your journey of improving this work culture, the psychological safety within your team? Does anybody want to share anything in the chat about it? Love to hear your perspective of where it is that you're working on this problem. Maybe you have an amazing work culture and we definitely want to hear about it. We all want to come and work there. So please tell us about it. I also want to thank you very much for your presence. I understand that lunch hours are busy, right? We're all multitasking everything as much as we can. I would love to hear your perspective and your experience in regards to this, about psychological safety, work culture, team culture, any of these things. So please reach out to me via email or my website, LinkedIn, whichever. If you would like to try some coaching, give me a call. We can do a discovery call. But I just really wanted to reach out and see what you're feeling in regards to psychological safety. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Just looking through your guys' chats.
Perfect. What a great webinar. Thank you so much, Chrissy.
Thanks.
I think we'll leave it open just for a couple more minutes here, see if there's any other questions that do pop into the chat. But I'm not.
I love this one of practice active listening. It's so powerful, and I just really appreciate somebody putting that in there, because enviable is how somebody described their work culture. Other organizations have said they envy our work culture. Oh, that's very cool. Everyone take note of that place.
It's the best feeling to get to work in that type of culture, for sure.
Right? And to be able to share your whole self. Yeah.
Yeah, someone said listening can be the toughest thing to do.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I think, so important when we acknowledge that we also are trying to create that space between situation and reaction, right? We want to have more space in there. We want to hear, because man, us reacting at the wrong moment because of our own story, our own situation, man, can that ever be detrimental for the next time when they want to share something that really matters?
We also have a question in the chat, or in the question and answer box. It says, how do you deal with leaders who don't realize they're preventing psychological safety?
That is a great question. So I would definitely, my perspective is that we are in charge of ourselves. We can't change other people. And it is very frustrating. And so it comes to that situation of, what do we feel safe in bringing to somebody's, hey, I saw this great webinar, it was on psychological safety. If we know that they are interested in the financial repercussions, maybe we want to lead with that a little bit. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes we want to leave the little, the peanut trail, right? We are only able to control our own reactions, though, unfortunately. I really want to say that. So if you're in a position where you can strongly encourage team coaching, or them having some information, bring up some Brene Brown, some Amy Edmondson, there's lots of data to support why psychological safety matters, but we can't change them. They have to want to. I'm so sorry.
Perfect. Thank you, Chrissy. So it doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in. So I think we will call that a webinar.
Okay.
So again, thank you so much, Chrissy. Again, this was recorded. It will be up on our resource library, hopefully later today. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their blizzardy Wednesday.
Right. I hear it's worse tomorrow. Take care
Oh,
and be safe,
great.
everybody.